Hey everyone, welcome to DIY Yak. Thanks for tuning in. Wanted to give you an update on a project that I've been working on over the last few days. It was fairly easy to put together. I'm sure like all of you, I've been interested in using a shallow water anchor / stakeout pole for my kayak, and went online and did some research on the commercially available ones and was just absolutely floored by the price and what it costs for one of these. And to be honest with you, I figured that there's a better way to do it. So like many of you, I've gone on YouTube and researched a bunch of videos and found some really good ones here. I'll show a couple of them here in screenshots that were kind of inspirations for what I did. But I kind of took it a few steps further. I noticed there's a couple commercially available versions that are modular. And most of the DIY ones that I saw are kind of all or nothing. They've got the pole at whatever length you cut the fiberglass or the PVC, and then you're kind of stuck. But I did some research, went to Home Depot, went to Walmart, got on Amazon, and found some parts and pieces that I've put together that not only is it considerably cheaper, probably half the price, if not even greater discount, than some of the commercially available ones, but also actually has some more functionality to it. And kind of let me walk you through what I did. The first thing I did was I selected the pole that I was going to use, and I found these Miracle Grow 6-foot 3/4 inch fiberglass poles, and they're solid core. They're even sharpened on one end, which is great because working with fiberglass can be kind of tricky and with the shards and pieces that come off. So I actually found these at Walmart in the garden section. They're normally like $6.99, but because it's the off season here and not the spring here in Nashville, I was able to get these for, I think it was $3.50 a piece. So a super bargain. I actually picked up 3 or 4 of them just to play around with it and see what I could do as far as this project. And then I went to Home Depot and I got some things that I think worked out really well for making this modular. And let me show you what I did. To start with, I used a whole section of the garden stake, and so I made a 6-foot pole. But then I went to Home Depot and they make a PVC called CPVC. It's chlorinated PVC. It's 3/4 inch is all the pieces that I got. But you need to make sure it's CPVC because regular Schedule 40, not only is it a little bit more fragile, but it also seems the diameters are different. And so the CPVC is actually what really works well. And I was able to get all the joints and connections and pieces for right around $5 to make this. And so what I did was I made a handle out of a T-piece, a couple of connectors, and then the end piece, and it slides, and you can use any 2-part epoxy. I've got JB Weld here, but you can use any 2-part epoxy to put these together, and then it slides on the end cap and makes a standard 6-foot pole. And if that's all you want to do, you're fine with the purple color. You can do this for under $10, including the JB Weld or whatever kind of epoxy you use. So, $3.50 for the stake, the JB Weld, and then the CPVC pieces. But I went a step further and made it modular. So what I have actually is the 6-foot pole, and because of these pieces here, these are also CPVC 3/4 inch, but one is slides on the end of your 3/4 inch stake, and then the other end is threaded. And then I got the male and female versions. I think they're maybe $1 a piece most of the time there at the store, and was able to fashion it on one end here on the main piece. And then I added the male version on the handle. The other thing I did was I actually filled up the handle with some resin. You can use the epoxy if you want to. Because it's a hollow core here, I wanted to make it more stable and solid. So it screws in there, and I've got a standard 6-foot stakeout pole. But then, because I had more than one of the fiberglass poles, I started playing around with it a little bit. And so for a few extra dollars, you can actually make it modular to where I can add a 2-foot section here and make it an 8-foot stakeout pole. And then I went one step further because I had the leftover fiberglass pole and made a 4-foot section as well. And so for under $20, you can have a completely modular, now purple, mind you, stakeout pole that you can keep the extra pieces in the hull of your kayak and use it as you need to, depending on the depth of your water. I also went a few steps further, and kind of let me show you what I did. As you can see, I went ahead and covered the purple fiberglass stake with what's called 1-inch heat shrink tubing. I got this on Amazon, and I actually had a bunch of it left over because I used it and then the fabric tubes to make these. I cut these off and we're making caps on rod sleeves. And so I had a 10-foot section of this. And so I ended up covering the entire section of all 3 parts of the stakeout pole. And I'll be honest with you, full transparency, it is a pain in the butt to put this stuff on and to get it slid on there. But once you do and you heat shrink it down, it works perfectly because it's actually the stuff that I had has a marine glue on the inside of it. So once it's heated up, that glue actually coats and then sticks to whatever whatever you're covering with it. So all of the 3/4 inch fiberglass rods are coated in this, and that the shrink tubing is probably about, depending on what sections you get and what colors you get, anywhere from $10 to $15 or $7 to $15 for a 4-foot section or a 10-foot section. So, you know, for covering it up, you know, it makes it a lot easier to grip onto, a lot safer, because as you know, as fiberglass deteriorates and with wear, it can create those shards that can stick you in the hand and just kind of makes it a pain to deal with. The next thing I did was I actually had some 550 paracord. And so what I did was wrapped the handles in 550 paracord. And as you can see in the reflection from my camera, I actually have the kind that shines at night. And I bought this for another project, but had plenty of it left over. As you can see over here on my kayak, on the Plano Tough Crate, I made my own rod leashes out of the 550 paracord and weed eater line. So I had a bunch of that left over. I love the fact that it's reflective. So if I'm fishing early in the morning or late at night and I have to separate from the anchor pole, I can just, you know, shine a headlamp on it and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So it was real easy to wrap those. And what I did, my wife actually had some leftover craft. It's a 2-part resin, and so I mixed that together and painted it on over the paracord, and it made it so where it's watertight, so the lake water or salt water won't soak into the paracord. So it, you know, makes a great handle, easier to grip, a little bit thicker. And actually what I did down here was on the main piece, I used black paracord on it, specifically for the purpose, not because of a handle, although it can be used for that, but it makes the diameter of the 3/4 inch fiberglass pole thicker, so it actually fits and slides into my paddle holder on the side of the kayak. So that's why I did that there, and as you can see, I coated it with the resin as well. Couple things to note. I'm kind of OCD, and so another step that I did that's a little extra that you don't have to do is I primed and painted the CPVC handles before I put them on. And if you do that, you want to make sure that you put tape over the threaded pieces so that the paint doesn't gum up the threads, and it works out really well together. The other thing that you can do, I didn't, but you can do, is use the metal. These are CPVC fittings with a stainless steel coupling to them. The male and female ends, they're a little bit more expensive. I didn't do that because I was worried about the joint between the metal and the plastic here. And so I just went ahead and went with all plastic, filled them in with the resin to make them solid core. One other thing that you can do is I went to Walmart, actually had some of this stuff left over because, as you can see here on my kayak, I covered the straps on my Native Slayer with 3/4 inch pipe covering. And it's real similar to a pool noodle. It's just a little bit thinner and easier to deal with. It's not as thick, but it's also got here to where it can slide on, and then you pull those plastic strips and it glues itself. It glues to itself on the pole. So it does add some buoyancy to it. It also makes it quieter, and my paddle holder on the side of the kayak, it's not bouncing and making a knocking noise while you're sitting on the water. That foam definitely helps insulate the noise as well. So all in all, I've tested the joints as far as screwing the pieces together, bent them over my knee with quite a bit of shear force. Everything held together great. Now I've got a DIY pole for probably under 30 bucks, maybe a little bit more if you have to go out and buy any of these extra pieces. But I can store the 2 extra handles down in the hull of my kayak and pull them out as I need them if I'm in deeper water. The other thing I do is I've got a paddle leash here with a float on it, and it just clips on to the side of my kayak with a quick release carabiner, and then also just wraps and ties onto the pole itself. So all in all, I think I've got maybe $30 in this. It took me probably a day and a half, and that's total time. Actual working time, maybe a couple hours, but you have to let the JB Weld or 2-part epoxy dry, and then you also have to let the resin dry after you coat the handles. But everything else I had laying around except for the stakes and the CPVC fitting. So worked out perfect. It's way cheaper, and I think I'll know more when I get it out on the water, but I think it's actually going to be a little bit better than some of the commercially bought things that you can do. If you have any questions, feel free to message me directly. Thanks again for tuning into DIY Yak. I've got several other projects in the mix that I'll be getting videos out for here shortly. If you can, please hit like and subscribe. Definitely would appreciate it. Thanks, and be safe out there on the water.